Hey guys, Pete here. This will be my Better Call Saul Season 5, Episode 10 trailer breakdown and preview. It's already time for the season finale. I can't believe how fast this season has gone by and just how good it's been. Thankfully, it won't be the last. We already know there's 13 more episodes coming after this one in a longer Season 6. The series will end there, but before we can think about that, we have episode 10, which is titled Something Unforgivable, to close out season 5. This is your quick spoiler warning. This video will contain spoilers about everything that's happened in Better Call Saul leading up to the finale of season 5. We're also going to talk about things that happened in Breaking Bad, so if you're not caught up or you don't like speculation about what's to come, then this video won't be for you. Consider yourself warned. After episode 9, we've arrived at the end of the season and we found ourselves in new territory. Jimmy McGill's two worlds have officially intersected with each other. When Lalo Salamanca knocked on the door of his apartment, all hopes for him keeping his wife Kim Wexler out of the game faded away. The legal world and the criminal world are now all wrapped up in one. Since this is a prequel show and we already know the fates of many of the characters, it's pretty amazing how hard it is to predict what will happen next. A lot of that uncertainty is related to Lalo and what he plans to do after he walked out of Jimmy and Kim's apartment. He told Nacho they were going to Mexico, which this trailer confirms, but his next move is a complete mystery. Everything hinges on that showdown with Kim, and no matter how many times I rewatch that scene, I can't see where he gives a hint to what he's thinking. She may have convinced him that he can't trust anyone and that he needs to get his house in order. Or she may have impressed him with her talk of shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Or it could just be like Tony Dalton described it in an interview. He saw that he was thinking about all this too much, and in reality, now that he's out of jail, everything is fine. Everything is not fine with Jimmy. Jimmy is battered from his experience, and certainly not operating at 100%. Before Kim stepped in, there was almost no Saul Goodman on display, as Lalo forced him to retell the story of what happened in the desert. I'm not really sure if he's going to recover from that by the end of this season, and that might be okay. I mean, he has Kim on his side, and she's proven herself to be fierce when it's necessary. The episode description for Something Unforgivable doesn't provide much help either. It reads, Jimmy and Kim make a sideways move that takes a serious turn. Nacho gets closer to the cartel than he'd like. And listen, I'm not complaining. I think it's awesome that I can be this engaged with a TV show and not know what's going to happen next. The season's been great and I expect that to continue. Let's break down the preview trailer scene by scene and then I'll toss out some ideas I have kicking around in my head. The trailer opens with Kim and Jimmy still in the apartment just after Lalo leaves. Jimmy's on the phone, presumably talking to Mike, and he asks, so what happens next? This is promising in that we might get to see Jimmy and Kim talk about what just happened, but there's no sign of that anywhere in this trailer. Jimmy's words indicate that maybe he wants to try to do something to try to protect Kim, but I can't imagine that Mike will let him do anything other than sit back and pretend that nothing happened. This could put him in a weird spot where he wants to make things right in his mind, but his hands will be tied. He'll basically be unable to act, and that might have a really negative effect on him. Next, we see Gus outside the burned down Los Pollos site. He's walking by a rollaway dumpster. We see the burnt up sign and things inside. And here we see the only one episode left this season title flash up on the image. Gus says, well, to someone off screen, and we don't know what he says after that. This is probably Mike. I'm not sure who else it could be, and he's probably there to fill him in on what happened at the apartment. Then we see a shot of razor wire on top of a wall, giving the feeling of a heavily fortified compound. At the gate, we see a man with an automatic weapon and a knife on his belt. There's a black truck with a Chihuahua license plate that pulls up, and we can't see who's inside it. This could be anybody that's related to the cartel. Don Eladio's cartel is referred to as the Cuidado Juarez cartel. That's a city that's in Chihuahua, so I'm guessing that all the characters we know, Juan Bolsa, Don Eladio, all of them live in that place. Back in their bedroom, Kim says, well, do you know something you're not telling me, to Jimmy. We can see sunlight coming in, so it's daytime, and Kim is dressed to go out, like she's dressed professionally. She's wearing this blue shirt, which I think she's wearing throughout the rest of the scenes that we see. It's hard to tell though because she's not wearing a jacket here, and in the other scenes she is. Since she doesn't have a job, I imagine she's going to the courthouse to do pro bono work. Either way, she's going out, and Jimmy doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Next, we see Nacho in Mexico, and he's talking to someone on his phone. He just says, yeah, there's nothing else there. That cuts to a shot of a phone that flashes a no service message. It could be Nacho's phone, it could be someone else's. There's nothing to connect it to anything. We hear Lalo say, don't think I don't see you, all right? He's working on a car and Nacho's looking on. This looks like it's probably his home, and it would make sense that it would be behind those guarded walls we saw earlier. After that, Mike tells Jimmy, you're asking for information you can't have. Based on what they're wearing, this looks connected to the sneak peek video for episode 10. And that would mean this conversation is inside Mike's house. In that clip, we saw that Jimmy found out where Mike lived and he went over there to ask questions. Jimmy's probably trying to put things together, and Mike is probably trying to keep Gus's identity secret. The sneak peek video is pretty funny. We see Jimmy alternating between ringing the bell and hitting the door, sort of shouting, and then we see Mike pull up in the background. That cuts to a shot of Kim talking to Howard in an empty courtroom. We don't hear any of their dialogue, and they both have serious looks on their faces. This feels surprising to see these two characters together. It's pretty hard to guess at what they might be talking about. Howard could be congratulating her for getting married. He could be telling her about the bowling balls and the prostitutes. He could be offering her a job. There's a lot of possibilities, but none of them seem exactly right. Next, we see Jimmy at home in bed staring up at the ceiling. He still looks like he's struggling to get over the events he's been living through, and it looks like he's trying to figure out what his next move is. That's followed by a nighttime shot of Kim and Jimmy sitting on the bed. She asks, "You're not going to do it again." And while she's talking, we see 3 big blocks of cash wrapped in plastic. It's not clear where the cash is or what's going on with it. It's possible that the cartel wants Jimmy to move it again, based on what she says, or it could just be misdirection in the trailer. Then we get a shot of Nacho coming through a door, and it's too dark to tell what's going on. I'm guessing that this is still at Lalo's compound, or somewhere south of the border, and it's probably connected to a scene we'll see a little bit later. That cuts to a shot of Lalo lounging, drinking a beverage. Over these shots, we hear Kim say, "Oh my God," in voiceover. We then see her walking into a room filled with boxes. She's being led by someone who is just out of the frame. When I stopped it and looked at it closely, the person has a dark complexion and is wearing a suit. His hair is cropped neatly, and so this could actually be Gus, but I really don't want to believe that's true. I tried to take a close look at the boxes, but couldn't make out anything that was written on them. It looks important, but it's also mysterious. Then we see this shot of someone firing a gun in a kitchen. It's hard to make anything out. When the flash dies down, it does look like it's at nighttime, and that's why I thought this was connected to that earlier shot of Nacho coming into the house, but it doesn't look like it's Nacho that's holding the gun. The best I can do is that someone is going to shoot up something somewhere, sometime during this episode. The next shot is of Jimmy sitting on the edge of the bed thinking. Kim's under the covers and she rolls and turns off the light. It fades to black, and then we see a close-up shot of Kim's eye looking through a peephole in a door. I think the peephole is the one that's on their front door at their apartment, and she could just be looking out it after Lalo leaves the apartment on that first night. It's hard to say. So that's where the trailer ends. And like I said, it's exciting because we don't know what's going to happen. If you think about it long enough, something unforgivable could apply to every one of the characters and their situations. Jimmy could do something unforgivable. Kim could do something unforgivable. Lalo could make Nacho do something unforgivable, and so on. I really don't know. To revisit the description, it says Nacho gets closer to the cartel than he'd like. Considering Lalo has to stay out of the US, I'm guessing that their time in Mexico is going to involve him having to prove his loyalty, but I can't tell you how that's going to play out. We have to imagine that when he leaves, when Nacho goes back, he's essentially handing him the keys to the kingdom until Tuco gets out of jail, which is what he was telling Hector about. Just a little while ago, he told Saul he didn't trust him enough to give him the $7 million, so there's potential for something to go down there. I'm really curious as to what the teaser will be. In the previous seasons, the cold open for the finale's always been a flashback. We saw Jimmy back in Cicero. We saw Chuck and Jimmy as kids. We saw Chuck and Jimmy when their mother died, and we saw them when Jimmy became a lawyer and they were out celebrating. I always like when they do flashbacks like that, so I'm really looking forward to see how they'll do it this season. It could turn out to be one of a completely different character, like we could get another Kim flashback or maybe even a Lalo flashback. I'm also curious to see whether Jimmy's going to get it together and what Kim plans to do now that she has walked away from Schweikert and Coakley. Jimmy wasn't too happy about about the idea, but when she said that she'll come up with a plan, I believe her. I know a lot of people think she might go full crime. I mean, it's possible in light that she's already tied up with the situation, but I think the big thing coming out of the last episode about their relationship is that we know that she is all in for Jimmy, and that's equally as important as her being in the game. The Howard thing is a complete mystery as well. Like, he could offer her a job, but why would she take it? She just left a partner position. I don't know how the Howard job would be any different. It's not to say it's not possible, but it is difficult to predict. We've also generally lost a character, or there was a death in the end of the season, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen this time or not. The way things are as it is right now, it'd be hard to see any of the major characters taken off the board, but no way impossible. Based on Gus's phone call, it seems that Juan Bolsa has figured out that the problems that Gus is having are coming from Lalo. This could spell the end for him, but it's kind of hard to imagine how that would play out. He's had such a big influence on the story, and they've crafted this character in such a way that he does such a good job being a worthy adversary to Gus, but then also to Jimmy, Saul Goodman, because he excels in some of the same areas of being able to be charismatic and to manipulate things just like Saul does. So it would be pretty surprising if he was gone, but it could definitely happen. I don't know, and that's a good thing. Going into this, I'm really excited. We got 14 episodes till this story ends, and I feel like this next one's going to be a big one. So let me know in the comments what you think, what you're hoping to see. Do you think someone's going to die? Do you think that there's going to be some major changes? How will next season set up, and where are we going from here? Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.